Hi, I'm Lisa Christensen, and I wanted to share with you some of the reasons why I might use tube paints versus pan paints. So let's start, and I will show you kind of why I have so many different types of product and what I use them for. Alright, so first off, I love having all the options. I love having palettes because they help me just grab and go. I can just grab this palette and head out and paint, right? Like I have all of the colors I would ever need in this palette, and it's my favorite. It's just a small compact palette, and I can paint. I have everything I need, right? And I can make almost every single color. So that's why I love pan palettes, and that's why I gravitate to them so often. And I really enjoy having different palette sizes, because depending on the size of my bag, I can take a larger one or a smaller one. This is from Artistro, and I actually can keep like more things in this one. I took this one on a trip to Florida with me actually, and I picked up some stencils. And so anyways, at Disney, because I'm a big Disney person, but so anyways, I can just keep like a lot of paper in here, and I just grabbed this. I didn't have to use my painter's box or anything. I knew I was going to paint at the beach and in our vacation house that we rented, so it was just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the pans, the colors. I had a pencil sharpener, and this one has a lot. I did bring extra brushes with me, as you can tell, but I painted probably every day, and I still feel like I have a whole palette. So you know, I like this palette. I use this palette often, and I even keep my brushes here, and I can just head out with and go. Another palette that I truly love, that I just kind of like go and don't think about the colors, is this one. I made a swatch so I knew what colors I needed. And these pigments are fantastic. They're one of my favorites. But this is just an easy, I could cut some paper down to size like I did here and just paint a landscape. And this is really a beautiful palette for a landscape. So there's lots of reasons why I just gravitate to palettes that I don't have to necessarily mess with. I can just grab it and go and know that I'm going to enjoy my painting session. There's also palettes that I use in my studio, like this Kuretake palette, and I've used it a lot actually. I like it because I can use the pans are full-size pans, so I can get like a 1-inch brush in them, and you can tell that I've used it quite a lot. So that's an option too. You know, it's whatever fits in your budget and how you're going to use them. And so those palettes really do help when I just want these 3 palettes for sure. Just helps when I grab and go, on the go watercoloring. So that is always fun. It makes sense to me to buy these kind of palettes. I wouldn't buy them all the time, but once a year I'll probably get a palette or 2 just to play with. Other ways that I like to use pan palettes are, I bought this a couple years ago. I just wanted something really small. I mean, it fits in my hand, right? It is really tiny. And I've used it. I actually let my kids use it. If I know I'm going to be going and painting along outside, I'll bring this for my kiddos to paint with too. But it's a great little palette. It has all the colors you would need. It's a small little pocket-sized palette, and those are always nice to carry when you think you might paint and you just want something in your purse or something. You can carry along that. So I also have a kind of a hybrid system that I like to do. These are like curated watercolor palettes, and this one is the landscape palette from Core Watercolor from Golden. And so what I did was I took these 2 paints and I put them into a foldable watercolor palette that I bought at Dick Blick. You can buy these. They're just foldable watercolor palettes, and I put these colors right in here, so I can, and then I let them dry, and now I can just take this whole thing but in a palette and I really like doing that. And then I do the same thing with the high chroma colors. I just put them right in here, and then I added my split primary. So I got my blue split primary, my red, and my yellow split primary. And then I added some extra colors that I thought I would use along the way. Okay, so tube paint. Here's my tube. I think I might have a tube paint problem. I do have a tube paint problem. This is about half of the tubes that I own. It's a ton of tubes, but why might I go with two paints instead of a palette? Well, the answer is I like to paint with fresh paint, and I think every time you start with like the pan palettes, you start with these palettes, and then you realize that there's not as much freedom in these palettes, even if you get the 48 color one. Like this is a 48 color one, and this Artistro is a 48 color one, and they are awesome. Don't get me wrong, I think they're worth their money 100%. However, you lose freedom when you get just a pan palette. So what I mean by that is when I went out some of these tubes, like this is one of my favorite colors, Cascade Green, and I love this because it has granulation and it has a couple of different colors in it that mix together really well, and it's just one of my favorite colors for florals. And so, and along with green gold, I had to just buy a whole new tube of green gold because I ran out. So I bet I can't find green gold necessarily in a palette, in a 48 color palette. Same thing with ultramarine violet. They're just very, I like Daniel Smith colors. These are all Daniel Smith colors because they have unique painting properties, whereas the pan palettes don't. They're all very much the same. They're like, you're going to get your normal French ultramarine blue, and you're going to get your lemon yellow, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you kind of lose out on some of the fun colors that we like to paint with. Like watercolor is so much fun because you get to paint with all these beautiful colors. This is one of my favorites. It's a cobalt violet, and I can't seem to find it in a pan. So I will make my own palette like this. So you find a palette, and like I showed you with the core, this one I actually bought the metal palette, and then I had to buy the half pans, and then I filled up my half pans, and I even wrote on each color. Like this is cad yellow, and I'm afraid to open them because they're they got paint all over them, but like this is a alizarin crimson. And so now I know that this palette, I have all of these colors in, and I can just grab and go. All my favorite colors are in this palette. I can just grab and go. Here's my list of my swatches that I did, and I can just grab and go. And I use this every day. When my kids were at the pool, I would watercolor, and this is the palette that I used, and I made tons and tons of floral cards with it. And so that is why I will use tube paint. If I'm in my studio at home, I will just put it out on my porcelain palette and paint that way. Otherwise, it goes in a palette like this, and I can be happily on my way. I will put paint in, let it dry a couple days if I put a full one in. I usually only put like little bits in. You can tell that I don't always fill it up. That way I don't want to waste my fresh paint, because I do like having the richness, and the you get a thicker richness when you use tubed colors, even if you put it in a pan, because you have to wake up the watercolor with water. So some of my favorite ways to paint is by curating a palette, and you can get these palettes on Dick for, I don't know, less than $10, and then you buy the pans, which are about $6 for like 20 some in a package, and then you just add them. I could always add one more if I wanted to, but it was going to be really, really tight, so I didn't. Yeah, so I hope this video was helpful. There's so many fun ways to use watercolor, and I think when you find a way that works for you, it's perfect. There's no right or wrong. So my suggestion is to pick up your favorite pan of watercolor. Mailing or Artistro both have wonderful, wonderful products that I recommend. And then pick up a couple of your favorite watercolors that you want to try. Maybe you want to try yellow ochre. Yellow ochre and lemon yellow are part of a split primary. And then maybe you want to try a purple. So let's try quinacridone magenta. That's a beautiful, beautiful color. And then maybe rose madder, because that's a really pretty color too. And then you have this like very curated palette just for you. I have been in love with manganese blue. You can tell I've been using it a lot. So maybe I'd put that in my palette, and then get a foldable palette like this. You can, there's two different types. You can get one that you put your pans in, or when I started, and I still use these palettes, I have a couple of these palettes actually, get one that already has the wells in them, and put your paints in here, and then you have like a whole workstation ready to go, on the go for you. So anyways, I hope this is helpful. And so to answer questions, is tube watercolor better than pan watercolors? Tube watercolors give you more freedom. Pan palettes give you the grab and go convenience quality. So there is no right or wrong. I say have the best of both worlds and have a couple of your grab and go palettes and add on to your tube paint, and then get a foldable palette and make it happen. So anyways, happy painting. Enjoy your painting process. There's so many wonderful ways to paint. There's not just one simple solution. So I hope this gives you something to think about, and happy painting. See you guys next video.